Look at your phone, turn on your laptop, watch the television, whatever your medium, you know we're in the middle of an information war. The press is losing long-held trust. Politicians are weaponizing fake news, and much of the public is ill-informed and just tuning out. Here's one reason.
It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace, and I think they ought to apologize to start with. Michael Cohen.
Sir, since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? No, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization,
can
you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are attacking our news organization. Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state, Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically, Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question? You're attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
All right, that was the first press conference, maybe setting a tone there. But behind the scenes, journalists are stepping up their game and learning new skills to take on today's fake news environment. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the process of reporting so you can learn about some of the innovative ways that newsrooms are focusing on checking facts and finding solutions.
Here to explain how that's happening are Carolyn Robinson with the Solutions Journalism Network. Welcome to BK Live, Carolyn. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Aimee Rinehart, Partner Network Manager with First Draft News. Aimee, thank you for being here, too. We really appreciate you both being on BK Live. Why don't we start by asking you how you define, for those who don't know, solutions-based journalism. Carolyn, can we start with you?
Sure. Very basic. It's encouraging newsrooms and journalists to move beyond problems and start looking at how people are finding solutions to the problems.
Okay. Aimee, would there be anything that you might add to that definition?
I think just since the awareness has grown so much since the U.S. election in November of fake news or misinformation, I think one of the things that's important to keep in mind is that, you know, we've gone through probably dozens of fake news conferences between then and now, and now it's time to get to work and come up with some real steps and measures to stop this tide of misinformation.
So, Carolyn, how do we bridge that sort of chasm from going from fake news where people who are watching or reading might not even believe what is being reported, let alone to say, I'm going to take a solution from you, you're all liars?
That's a good question. We work with newsrooms and journalists around the country to get them to start thinking more about the answers and what people are doing to fix problems. And in that way, we hope to engender more trust with the media as well. What Aimee is doing is also another facet of that. She's looking directly at fake news. We're looking at how reporters try to cover the answers to what people are working on.
Yeah, Aimee, I mean, news has always been in the business of facts, but now, in a sense, do you thank Donald Trump for kind of raising awareness to your fact-checking services?
No, to the short answer. I think one of the things that we've noticed, what we've tried to do, we created a cross-check newsroom. It's a virtual verification online newsroom. We have 37 news partners, and it's surrounding misinformation around the French election. So it really is our laboratory. We don't know if having 37 newsroom partners makes people feel like they can trust that source. We don't know if people will be confused or informed by our distinction of fake news, misreported news. All of this will be discovered once we close the French election project sometime after May 7th for the second and final round of voting. And we're excited to learn. We don't know if these things will work, but we will apply whatever lessons we can and impart them to other organizations like Carolyn's so that we can all make better decisions, because so often the media is operating on a fire system instead of informed decisions.
So, Carolyn, looking at the technological landscape and Aimee's network, they've got 37 people from networks, not even people, 37 entities from around the world working to turn out good, reputable news. So that's a technological revolution. How are we going to insert the real journalism back into that instead of just the shiny new things so people can trust the work?
Right, exactly. A lot of innovation in journalism now is focused around technology.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a new model of editorial content, looking at reporting in a new way. Traditionally, we've been a watchdog journalism kind of society where we expect the press to surface all kinds of problems and then society will take care of it. We feel that that's not enough anymore, that what needs to be done is to also provide what people are doing to fix the problems. Maybe it doesn't always work, but let's stop looking directly at the problem and move beyond that a little bit to see what people are doing to resolve the problem.
Can I ask both of you if there's a model that you could point to somewhere in the world? Because anytime someone sort of steps out of their silo, you're an activist judge or you're an activist journalist, like that's a bad thing. Is there a place in the world where that's sort of celebrated and encouraged?
I don't know. I think one of the things we see to stem this flow of misinformation is collaboration. Journalists are natural competitors, and we don't want to stop that competition. But we could use something like an AP Wire service that actually just debunks a fake news item, and then journalists can go back and do what they do best, which is report on those stories around it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of collaboration, we're working with a collaborative in Philadelphia around reentry. 15 or 16 media organizations in Philadelphia, traditionally a very competitive media town, have come together to look at the issue of recidivism. And we are now, it's going to be a year-long project. They're already producing stories focused on the solutions, how people can stay out of prison. And it's quite exciting.
How are these collaborations foolproof? I mean, basically, how are they set up? How can you kind of demonstrate that this is a new way of thinking that, is important in terms of putting out real news, so to speak? Aimee?
Yeah, so how are they put together?
Yeah, how did the collaborations work exactly?
Well, for Crosscheck, we have 37 newsroom partners that are scattered throughout France and in Great Britain. And so they have a daily 10 a.m. meeting on Slack, which is a blog platform, and they talk about what articles they might pursue that day. And it operates just like an in-person newsroom. And then there's debate after that, and we encourage a vigorous debate. We don't want everybody to agree on things. We really want to to scrutinize everything that comes across the desk.
So, Carolyn, looking at this, what we touched on about competition and these guys working as a collaborative, there's also a lot of media entities that are shrinking and they just have a hard time keeping the lights on. How do they maintain that edge and their ideologies while still essentially going in together?
And that's one of the reasons they collaborate is because resources are shrinking.
Gotcha.
There was a big project in San Francisco on homelessness, and something like 30 media organizations came together for a day or a week of reporting. This was really put a lot of emphasis on the whole problem, but not just the problem, the solutions, in a way that policymakers in San Francisco could then take away some possible answers to pursue. And also just to put a little pressure on public officials. When you've got that many media outlets collaborating together, people notice it. And that really raises the issue and the awareness to both the problem and the solutions, things that can be done. We feel that solutions journalism is a form of accountability journalism, that when you show that things can work, it puts more pressure on public officials to come through with some answers.
So are we going to be looking at journalists to write white papers now and start legislating?
No, that's not our role. We are traditional journalists. In fact, there are different iterations of solutions journalism, if you will, in different parts of the world that are more advocacy. What you're talking about is more advocacy. We simply want journalists to move beyond the traditional problem-oriented reporting and start looking at what people are doing to try to fix it. How is it working? Is it working? Could it work in different places? Who's doing it better? Start asking those kind of questions, and it leads to some really interesting answers.
Aimee, let me ask you about what is a field guide to fake news?
It's basically a cookbook we came up with to give journalists and people interested in verifying news a way to visualize. So if you have a big complicated problem and you're not sure how to get all of the information out to people, one way to do that is through data visualization. And it's an easy recipe that you follow. Right now we have 3 chapters released on that. We'll release more soon. And it's just to give people an idea, and we really encourage people to try this out, see what you get, and just like any other recipe, how did you alter it and why? And we're hoping that it generates conversation and maybe emboldens some journalists to take the step into data visualization.
The fakes are so good now, though.
Yeah.
Like from like something as benign as the Yes Men with their fake New York Times to real things that look not to real fake things that look like they're from actual outlets.
That's the greatest thing about the web is it's so democratizing. Anybody can have a website.
It's scary.
Anybody can have a Twitter handle.
Yeah.
The bad thing, too, is that it's so democratizing. Like, everybody can have these things, and they do look legitimate. And that's a big problem, and one of our initiatives also is to have more news literacy, because people just don't know how to discern, especially on mobile phone, what is real and what isn't, because it looks so good.
Yeah.
Carolyn, what can you tell us about the project with WNYC regarding kids in prison?
Yes.
Sarah Gonzalez.
Sarah Gonzalez, yeah, she just won the Daniel Shore Prize Journalism Award for her reporting on juvenile justice. She looked at how juveniles are being treated in New Jersey and New York and found a big difference in just across
Germany.
And then so she also found that in Germany they were looking at the whole problem in a different way. They don't consider a minor under the age of 21. It's, I think, age 24.
That's right.
And they treat them in a more relaxed fashion that actually had better results. It was something only a 30% recidivism rate as opposed to New York and New Jersey in the high 70s and 80% return. So we helped her go to Germany to report on that, and she came up with a great story, and we're happy with her.
And it's still available on NYC. You guys can click it. It's really fascinating to hear the differences. Great reporting from her.
Yes, Aimee, what were the lessons in the 5 ways to spot fake news in the New York Times, the Super Tuesday hoax?
Well, some of these lessons are basic, looking at the URL, and that's new to a lot of people, but like the URL structure, if it seems to deviate from what it usually is on a website, that it could be a hoax, and it's something to look up. There's other ways, look for misleading headlines, headlines with all caps, exclamation points, question marks, things that don't look very newsy might not be.
Anything your old aunt sends you that tells you, I told you I was right.
Like NewYorkTimes.biz.au is probably not the New York Times. Carolyn, what can you tell us about the Minneapolis Star Tribune?
That's right. In Minneapolis, they have a huge Somali community, something like 100,000. Of that, a tiny percentage of them have been radicalized and went to Syria. So the Department of Justice picked 3 cities to give a big grant to see what they could do to help de-radicalize the communities. We went along with the Minneapolis Star Tribune to do a series of stories on this. They went to Denmark, where there is an example there of how police are working with the community in a more gentle, let's say, fashion that has more results. And in addition to that story, they also did a lot of community forums, and they made connections with community leaders that they hadn't done before, including translating all their stories into Somali. We had helped them with get a Somali-based reporter. This built the trust between the community and the paper in a way that hadn't been done before. They really hadn't been 2 separate audiences, but there were a lot of results coming out of that.
So this was a good result, but is there any sort of trepidation about maybe you're walking a fine line between propaganda, since the government says, okay, we have a problem, let's put some money at this to bring the Somali community, in this example, into the fold. So I'm sure the spidey senses from journalists start tingling when that sort of thing comes down.
Good point. And we are journalists through and through. We encourage rigorous reporting on these issues. We encourage journalists to use their scrutiny and to show what isn't working as much as what is working. It's not meant to be a puff piece. It's not meant to be good news necessarily or positive news.
And Aimee, what came of your 2-day summit on misinformation?
Well, we had we got together with lots of different people, and by that I don't mean not just traditional journalists, but librarians, data scientists, developers. And you walk into this and you're not sure what's going to come of it. We came out with 20 different projects, and a project that I'm working on, we continue to meet, and we hope to launch a platform that brings together research in all of these fields and makes it easily understandable to journalists and other people who can amplify this information that could inform their work.
Any final thoughts, just in our last 30 seconds?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, we need this kind of journalism today. People have been surrounded by problems traditionally for years and years, and we need to have people move beyond the problem-oriented reporting and start looking at what's working as well. It brings trust together in the community as well.
Well, we really want to thank you both very much for being here, and please come back as we continue to discuss these issues.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for keeping us honest.
Yeah, big time,
Thank you.
big time.